Good morning, tubers. Welcome back for another adventure. And what we want to do in this video is put the head back on this thing. Some of you requested I take a look that I take the jug off to take a look. There you go, at the piston and rings and so forth. And I'm going to do that. But a bunch of you guys indicated that this is a Wisco piston, and the normal piston for this thing is 65 millimeters, and this is a 66. And you guys could see I put oil in there and stood it upright. It's been like this for a couple of days, and the oil has not drained down. So I'm thinking that the rings are good, but we'll just pop this off and take a look there. So that's topic number one I wanted to go through. Okay, here's topic number two. The head I took off only had one dowel pin. I looked at some of the others in my collection. Like this one came through with two. I bought this guy and this guy together, and this guy came in, or that guy came in with two. This is yet from another deal, and this dowel pin right there corresponds to this guy, right? You could see that, and that with nothing, and then that with nothing. So anyway, it took me a little while to figure out. This is the new gasket, and the new gasket doesn't, the dowel pin doesn't fit, right? That hole isn't quite big enough for the dowel pin. So I'm putting it together the way I found it, with only one dowel pin. If anybody out there knows something I don't, please let me know. And we'll see. If I go with one dowel pin and the gasket fails quickly, I'll go, you know what, it probably needed to. But I think I'm going with the way it was, because once again, I tried, when you try to push the dowel pin through, it doesn't quite go. So I'm going with one. There we are. I think I'm showing you that the rings are in really nice shape, and you want to set up the gaps. Like if the top ring gap is here, you want to put the next ring gap not where your rod is here. I'm looking for the word, I've lost it, right? You don't want to put any ring gaps where the cross pin is. Shoot, I lost it. Anyway, so you want to move them around, but basically 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And once again, the rings are in nice shape. I'm going to start putting it back together again, paying attention that you don't drop any of these pins into the drink, into the crankcase as you're going, right? You could just picture how much trouble they would get in, right? You got one there, and there's a second one that I think goes here. Yes, there it is. So you just want to be careful, you want to be clean, and you want to be well oiled. So I'm about to slide that back on, and you know, just the inspection, everything looks good. I'm also seeing I got to break into this side of the engine. So maybe we'll do the reassembly for this video, and then we'll mess around with the clutch for the next video. The reassembly begins. The first thing I did is I got the bolt out of here, right? That's just trouble. The second thing I did is I kind of got everything to top dead center, right? You guys could see that line. When that line is aimed right at here, you're at top dead center. You could also tell, that's the pistons all the way up. And lastly, see your timing chain right there? Make sure you're on the sprocket down here, right? Nothing stinks worse than smashing this whole thing together, right, and going, oh man, I'm not on that sprocket, I gotta tear it all apart again. So periodically check your chain, check everything to make sure it's where you think it is. I just recommend staying at top dead center with your piston whenever possible, right? It cuts problems. And oil is your best friend. Plenty of oil on the rings, plenty of oil here, plenty of oil everywhere. As I slide this on, you know, you kind of got to make sure that gets through and this gets through, right? There's why you want to put the wire on there. You know, everything stays in place. So I'm going to be like walking all around this, and this is on wheels. I'm going to be sliding it back and forth. So I want to do, it's going to be hard to have the camera on that. So I'm just describing all the pitfalls, and I'm going to kind of do that, and we'll get it back once I get the jug back in place. Once again, dowel pins are where they belong, top dead center. Chain on the sprocket, gasket's good, all cleaned up, right? There's no chunks there to slow it down. You know, slide your finger around, make sure it's all good. No jagged pieces, no openings in the gasket. You know, pay attention, do your best work here. It actually counts. You'll be graded by an oil leak. To get the rings into the bore, I use a little piece of wood and kind of massage them around. And by the way, that's known as a wrist pin. See, I'm not senile. Okay, we're putting the head gasket back in place. That's the one that was on the original head. I just put it on the bore. And there's the extra one I put in, but you can see the gasket doesn't want to close or go down around it, so I'm going to get it out of there. It must be that this thing only wants one of those dowel pins. So the rings were pretty. We've slid this back down, right? Use just a little piece of wood to push the rings in so it'll slip down. It is seated properly. The timing chain's back on. We got the two guides. Don't forget to put that chain guide back in. You know, I just have to rearrange that. And we're going to put the gasket on. I personally like to have the dowel pin on the bottom. When I put the gasket on, it allows me to see that everything's lined up a little better, a little easier. I kind of get the gasket exactly where I want it before I slide the head on down. So I'm going to line everything up and put that on. As you can see, the gasket's on there. Looks really pretty. Once again, top dead center, all that. Got that little piece of lint I got to fish out of there. It came in with the gasket. But looks good. Everything's seating properly. Everything feels right. Let's put the head on. Let's slide that right on down. Okay, slid the head right on. It's easiest, by the way, if you come in from the top and you could kind of look where you see the posts line up. Timing chain, see how it's nice wrapped around there. We got the guides are in and where they're supposed to be. The timing chain's holding that one in place, and the other one's held in place by the gasket and the head being on. The head settled right into position, and I just put this bolt on, right? And you want to do that because it makes sure everything's in nice alignment, and you're beginning to tighten things down, and you don't forget to do it, right? So get that all ready. We're getting to the point when I actually have to time things up, that I'm going to start showing you things again. I mean, the cam is a piece of cake to put in. You just want to make sure that it's oiled up nicely, and you don't have any fur balls or anything. This cam has quite a bit of wear on it, actually. Yeah, it's no baby. This thing's got some milds on it. Well, the bearing, well, it's not good to have a bearing surface that looks like it's cooked like that. Anyway, I'm going to make sure there's plenty of oil on it. I am going to use it. I'm going to put it back together again. So this isn't great, right? When you see the rainbow isn't a good thing. But anyway, this goes in like this. You see that little nub that sticks out? That's gotta, you gotta make sure that's in the hole. Right. And remember, for timing this, it's lobes down. Top dead center with the lobes down. Right? Remember, when you're at top dead center, you got to turn this thing quite a ways before you you hit the valves on either way. And remember, you got the little notch there that should be toward the top. So we're looking all good. Now it's just a matter of getting it nice and oily and putting it back together. Let's set up the timing. Remember I mentioned this cut here lines up beautifully with this, right? I know the piston's all the way up because we moved it until we got it that way, and once again I'm double checking, right? You could also get the cap off and look at the marks there. Remember, this belongs all the way up on top, and that's where it is. This thing belongs slightly off to the left, where that is, right? That's where the adjuster is going to snap in. As a matter of fact, right? See the little cut there. So when you slide this on, right, you'll be all perfect. Right, that's the magnet, by the way. That's kind of important. And I got to settle that back in. I got to oil it up, right? And we're starting to go together, right? I got to put the pin in here for the timing chain adjuster. You want to turn it around a few times to make sure there are no surprises and that you keep landing back on the timing marks as you expect, right, before you put any bolts in and commit. You want to tighten this up the rest of the way just to make sure everything is held down, in place, no surprises, right? Surprises mean things have to come apart again, so let's try to do no surprises. So remember, lobes down, right? Circle, that circle right there, right? Circle up the mark to put the timing advancer on there, and this cut goes here. You can also take that cap off and look for timing marks inside. Why? In my case, I can do it without, so I'm not going to bother. Anyway, so yeah, now it's just a matter of, I have to settle this back in. People like making a mistake. Remember to get that peg into the casting, the divot in the casting. Some people just try to tighten it down like this and they really make a mess, so try to do a nice job. The person who works on it after you do will appreciate it. To get the bolt in for the timing chain guide, you got to kind of push the guide down just a touch. You get it started, right? You really can't check the tension on anything until we actually tighten the head down. So but that's how you get it started, right? Bring it in, torque it lightly, and we're progressing. We're coming into the home stretch. Once again, triple check your timing, lobes down, right? Make sure we all move nice and freely, right? Remember, too much oil. I've been squirting oil all over the chain. You could see the meniscus of the oil there, and all over the top. Make sure there's plenty of oil. Too much oil won't hurt you. Too little, we know what what happens then. All right, so I'm going to flip this right on. I am not forgetting anything. Yeah, the dowels are right there. Yeah, I'm going to give this a little wipe and flip that. Well, it's actually stained. Yeah, right. Cleanliness is the next to godliness. Make sure you're clean, right? Anyway, so I'm going to clean up a little bit and, you know, put the flip top right on. And life is good. Make sure that's in the right place, right? You don't want it messing with your valve. Yeah, Better not to do this one-handed as I am, but you know, old Harvey likes to live dangerously. Okay, a few things. Make sure everything settles down properly, right? No gaps there, no gaps there, and no gaps down on the bottom. When you're putting in the head bolts here, make sure that you have the washer underneath them. And when you put these together, make sure you tighten them down. They're a torque spec. I kind of, from all the years I've been doing this, I kind of developed a feel for it, for when they feel springy and right to me. So that's the way I do it. Use the torque spec. You know, do as I say, not as I do. This washer in here, that's kind of important to make sure the torque's equal on all of them. So make sure you get all the washers are in. Make sure you get this thing set properly, which obviously I don't have it set properly. So I got to see what its problem is. Right, these are right. Right, you hear that and you hear that. I must have got that jam there. So I'm going to free that up and finish putting it together. These are only a little more than finger tight at this point. So yeah, it's really backwards of taking it apart, just paying attention to the details, right? Timing, you know, got to pay attention to the details. I had this thing too far down and it was stuck, so loosened it up. It's all good, right? Double, triple, quadruple check yourself. All right, where am I? I'm to the point where I should be turning this around and making sure everything ends up just as it should be, and it should be happy. I'm going to use this piece of wire down the spark plug to make sure I get the top dead center and everything else is just perfect. Never hurts to be positive. I use the drill with the 14 on high speed. To turn it over, you turn it counterclockwise. So I did that for, I don't know, 30 seconds, just to make sure it's going to pump some oil around. Everything is loose, right? I wanted to make sure the timing chain is the right tension, and that feels good. I want to make sure the valves are still, right, loose. By the way, after you do a head gasket, you should run it for a short period of time, and it doesn't hurt to readjust the valves, retorque the head, right, just to make sure everything is settling. These are tight at this point. The head bolts are tight, right, tighten, cross, right, cross pattern. That's tight, those are tight. Now, and one last double check. You see the circle above the bolt. You see the cut in there. See the line. You see that. And I use the wire to double check that we're in top dead center. And also, as you rock this back and forth, right? No valve movement. No valve movement. That's also important, because remember, when you're on the top of the power stroke, just as you're firing the plug to get power out of it, remember your exhaust valve is closed because you're compressing the boom, and then once you cross the top you spark, and your intake is closed after you cross the top, and your exhaust is closed because the boom is what makes the engine run, right? You can't have valves open for that. So everything is exactly where it needs to be. Now it's just a matter of putting the details on it. At this point, I can actually do a compression test, assuming the electric starter worked. But just from a sound point of view, it sounds like it's breathing again, so I think we got it. Okay, remember the little keyway. It's much easier to put on with this here. You don't have to drop it in. As a matter of fact, I turn that to just about upright. Needle nose pliers, do it carefully, pay attention. I might even lay the towel out right across here, so if it falls it'll stick right in the towel. All plugged in, just a matter. Okay, I got to line everything back to top dead center, right? We got to make sure it's all good, and we're getting closer and closer to being done, right? Right where it needs to be. Now I just got to put the pulser on. Let me pop this right to where it needs to be. There you go. we're singingly close. Couple of final checks before we seal this thing off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. The bolt is through. Happy tappy on top. I put the Allens in, you know, cross torquing them. Those were double checked. They're all torqued to spec. I got to put the caps on the valves, the cover on this thing, and it's done. I want to finish this video off with a compression test. Let's hope the electric starter has that much left in it. Remember how bad it sounded. Anyway, we're up over 60 psi. I don't know if you want to call this a wet compression or a dry compression. Just from the sound of it, you can see that the head gasket appears to have fixed our problem. We got the bolt out of here, so we're about done. There are two other problems with this engine. Obviously, the electric starter, the clutch, and all that on this side. And on that side, the automatic clutch adjuster, right? You guys remember this? That thing is all screwy. So I think I can put a bolt on there. That'd fix that. I could put a recoil on this side and use the rope start for it. So I think the next time you're going to see this engine is when it's back on the frame and we're ready to take it out for a ride. I think I showed you guys all the trivial little things on timing and torquing and not losing keyways, making sure things settled into place, the dowels for putting the head on. There's a set of dowels for this top cap also. There's two of those. Make sure they land in the right place. So mostly it's a matter of being neat, right? And I don't mean cool, I mean neat as in keep it clean, don't do anything silly, don't round out bolts. This engine looks like it's got quite a lot of miles on it from some of the wear surfaces I saw inside, right? But it also looks like it's got a new piston rings, and I think those might be new valves too. So supposedly it's a high compression Wisco. This thing might go out and haul some tail. So I'm looking forward to that. So I think next time you see it, I'll slip it into the frame. We'll kind of do a little bit of a minimum hookup and get it running. I discovered I have another 200M engine floating around that doesn't have a welded shifter. Unfortunately, this side of the engine is bare. So I'd have to steal some parts from here. I think the flywheel's there. Yeah, I think the flywheel's there. But the basket, the covers are missing. Anyway, I gotta see what parts I have for that. That might be the final engine that ends up on this, because I think that other engine's in better shape than this one. But do you want to ride or do you want to make them perfect? For me, it was always about the ride. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for dropping by to watch and comment, subscribe. Remember, feet down, heads up. And working on engines, particularly the rebuild stuff, there's a certain amount of artwork to that, a certain amount of judgment. So I'm not afraid to take advice. I do give advice, you know, but I'm not a doctor on YouTube or one in real life. So let's remember. Anyhow, once again, I want to thank you all for dropping by to watch and comment, subscribe. Remember, feet down, heads up. Get out and enjoy each and every day. Bye now.